Hello everyone and welcome to episode 2 of Let's Play Rad Raygun. We are back and we are in Afghanistan or something like that. Because that place totally exists, I'm telling you. Now in episode 1 I actually made a mistake. I said that there was a Met enemy that, or an enemy in it that resembled a Met, and then I said it was from Metroid. And that was me making an honest to God mistake. I meant Mega Man. And oops. Of course you guys already know that because I'm sure you've all played Mega Man before and you've seen Mets and are familiar with that enemy type. But yeah, I screwed up on that one. My actual first experience with Mega Man was different than most people's. I experienced him first through the Game Boy. I played Mega Man 4 on the Game Boy because when we were growing up we didn't really have the original Nintendo, at least not when it was on store shelves. We had it later on. In like 96 is I think when we got one, because a friend of ours got a Nintendo 64 either at or very near launch, and he had that and he had a Sega Genesis and he decided he wanted to keep the Sega Genesis, and I think his parents were like, okay, you need to get rid of one of your other systems, but don't quote me on that because I might be wrong. All I know is he gave us his original Nintendo with some games for it. That didn't include Mega Man. Of course, I had run across Mega Man before that, because prior to that, our parents had taken us, both my brother and I, to Incredible Universe, back when that was a thing, and they were going to get us Game Boys, and we got, I think, one with Super Mario Land 2 and one with Tetris is what I remember getting. Of course, I could be wrong. There's an Extra Life. I could be wrong about that, but I'm not entirely sure. And one of the games that I spent my money on back then, this looks like it should be climbable, and it's not. So that confused me for a second. One of the games I spent my money on back then was the Game Boy version of Mega Man 4, and I don't know if you've played the Game Boy version of Mega Man 4 before, but it's fairly different from the NES version. You start off with 4 Robot Masters instead of the usual 8 in it. That in and of itself is interesting enough. The 4 Robot Masters were, let's see if I can remember this, because it's been a long time since I played this game. They, Toadman, Pharaoh Man, Bright Man, and Ring Man. And even back then, I sucked at this kind of game, so I was never able to get past those 4 Robot Masters. No matter how good I got at the game, I could never beat those 4 Robot Masters, and it wasn't from a lack of trying. I beat Toadman, and I could do that with consistency. I couldn't... The other 3, I might have beaten them, a couple of them once or twice, but the one that I know I never beat was Ring Man. Ring Man always gave me trouble. But yeah, it was a different storyline. It didn't have Dr. Cossack from the NES version. So when I first played the NES version, I was like, wait a minute, there are 8 Robot Masters here? Who's this Dr. Cossack guy? Why is this lineup of robots completely different from what I'm used to? And it's because the Game Boy line of Mega Man games was very different from the NES line of Mega Man games. They had different games with different Robot Masters thrown in and different storylines and everything like that. And I had not played the NES version. And I didn't even get an SNES until years after that. I don't remember when I got an SNES. I've had one for a long ass time now, but I don't remember when I got an SNES. But the Game Boy is, like I said, I had one as a kid. I had one when you could go out to the store and get Game Boy games, and that was one of my most played games. And this reminds me a lot of that game. So this is like a big nostalgia trip for me, and I'm sure anybody else who played on the Game Boy and played the various games on it will probably get a big nostalgia trip from this as well. I really like that about it. It's really cool. I love the aesthetic. The design of this level really reminds me of Pharaoh Man. And thank God it doesn't seem to have the quicksand that Pharaoh Man had in his level, which That was always annoying because you had to jump constantly to make sure you didn't sink into the quicksand. That was fun. Or not. Die, tank. Much like Mega Man, at the end of each stage, you have these robot-type enemies that you have to fight that are similar in nature to the Robot Masters. They all have their own attack patterns and everything. But you can't fight them in any order. This is a much more linear game than Mega Man tended to be, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. This isn't just imitating Mega Man after all. The whole Game Boy aesthetic is here, and I enjoy it a lot. I mean, this is a short little game, so we're probably going to beat this, and we're going to beat this in 5 episodes is all that it took for me to beat this. But it's a short little game, and it's really cheap on Xbox Live. So I would recommend definitely picking this one up because there's a lot to like here. Especially if you're a fan of the Game Boy, and I most definitely am. I'm just sorry to the developers that it took me so long to get to this, because like I said in the last episode, I told them at SGC 2013 that I would do a Let's Play of this game. Okay, this increases the power of your cannon weapon. I was going to talk about the names that were mentioned at this beginning of this. Dr. Gunpei and Dr. Yokoi. One of them was the lab assistant. One of them was the doctor that actually built the robots. And if you recognize those names, it's because you're familiar with the Game Boy, basically. The man who created the Game Boy was named Gunpei Yokoi. And that is designed as a tribute to him. As is and the look of Rad Raygun is actually kind of similar to a combination of Mega Man and the original Game Boy because look, like he's got like the little D-pad on him and stuff like that. He's designed to resemble the Game Boy in that regard. And he's got the bullet belt kind of thing going on as well. Which, if you're familiar with 80s heavy metal and whatnot, that's a very 80s type thing. It was huge back then, having bullet belts and especially in various types of heavy metal. Big deal. But yeah, I love this game, and I think if you enjoy speedrunning, this is the kind of game that you will be all about, because, I mean, the speedrunners seem to really embrace this, because you can look online, you can find all kinds of speedruns of this game, and it's really cool. You can find Let's Plays of it, Derek Alexander, the Happy Video Game Nerd, whose content is awesome, by the way. He doesn't go by Happy Video Game Nerd anymore. What does he go by? Stop Skeletons from Fighting is what he goes by now. But his content is awesome. He did a video review of this game as well, just to try to spread the word on this game and why it's so awesome. And his review of this is worth checking out, as is his content as a whole. He's a talented guy who's got a lot of interesting and entertaining videos. I quite like his work, and I've been watching him for years. Screw Attack did a out of the box on this as well, and I watched that. That, as I remember, that is what introduced me to this game, was the out of the box on it, and I immediately fell in love with the style and aesthetic of this game because I love the Game Boy, and it looks like a Game Boy game. I get the feeling that the Game Boy probably is not powerful enough to actually run this game, even if you were to do it in full screen because instead of widescreen, because I think there's probably graphics are a bit more advanced than something the Game Boy could handle without considerable slowdown, which was a problem with some Game Boy games. I remember Mega Man 4 in particular having pretty bad slowdown, but let's be honest here, what would a Mega Man game be without some kind of considerable slowdown? And I just fell into the pit. Get the double jump, get right back out of the pit. I like having a double jump. this game's a lot of fun, and the guys behind it are awesome. I met them at SGC, and I showed you guys. You could watch that in the link to that video is in the description of episode 1, and you can go watch that. And it's quite enjoyable. I think it's an enjoyable little interview anyway. It was all impromptu. I didn't have any questions prepared. I just had my video camera there and my friend Alex there, and we were shooting and talking to the developers. And that's really all there was to it. It was like a conversation. I called it an interview, but it's really just more just me standing around talking to them. And we do talk about the game extensively, though. So there's plenty of good information about the game and behind the scenes stuff and all that. And I intercut it with gameplay footage. The gameplay footage probably doesn't look as sharp as this because it was not recorded with an HD capture device. It was recorded with my old SD capture device, which I still have and will probably go back to using at some point in the future when I do more SD games. Here, the good doctor is giving us suggestions on... You notice that on his belt he's got 2 red buttons, like the Game Boy had? Or I imagine they're supposed to be red, at least. You can't tell that they're red, but that's what it is. I lost my train of thought. I forgot what I was saying. You have to basically wait for this guy to transform, if I recall correctly, on how to beat him. Yeah, now I can shoot him. He's not that difficult. Like, once he transforms, I just start kicking his butt here. And there we go, he's done. And we will... Righteous, now that region of land can be at peace and stability for decades, and the transforming Device-Con was cool. Will we have more of those in the USA? I'll see what I can do. For now, I'll head to Berlin, pick up some new upgrades. On my way, we're going to Berlin, everybody. This game's awesome. I'd highly recommend you guys check it out. It's on Xbox Live Arcade. And all of these are marked by landmarks, such as this one. And they'll show you bosses and whatnot waiting for you. Hey, there's some sort of wall, big wall in my way here. And yeah, you start off the Berlin level by dealing with the Berlin Wall. Well, I guess we'll just have to reunite East and West Germany. That is literally how you start this level. You reunite East and West Germany. Anyway, thank you everybody for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe down below. It would be greatly appreciated. We'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks everybody, and goodbye.